Hi there, this video is going to be a video of the third impulse of 1943 winter season in the Pacific Theatre here in the Second World War. This is take two, and lots of really interesting comments that I made in the last are not gonna make it into this. You know what it's like when you said your piece, you can't really reenact it. So this I commented on strategy and so forth and where we were in the game. I'll just sort of briefly cover it. So the US have got the Marshalls, and they just took Santa Isabel in the Solomons. They got Guadalcanal and San Cristobal. Essentially, they're trying to knock out the air cover in Rabaul so that they can take Port Moresby. Rabaul being covered also from Truk, and originally they thought they'd try to sort of circumvent Truk and New Britain, which Japan had, and head straight for Japan, but it became clear that they had to make a push towards Australia because the Japanese were threatening Australia, so they had to sort of push them away from that. And then with the Japanese, to make successful invasions here, they're going to need a port. The nearest port to there is back here in Fiji, or New Caledonia here, in American possession at the time, or even in Hawaii. That's really too far away to helpfully support amphibious invasions, so they need Truk for that. To get Truk, they need Rabaul. To get Rabaul, at this point, they really need Port Moresby. To get boots on the ground, because Rabaul's strongly held. They might be able to try a coup de main, as it were, on Rabaul, but with the Japanese task force, their fleet, it's not likely. The Americans are waiting for reinforcements. So the Japanese have just recently taken nationalist China. They took Maoist China a few seasons ago, and it's been a long, hard slog in China. And it was they were still fighting for the Dutch East Indies, which are held by the Commonwealth. Commonwealth, as the US came across to protect, to sort of threaten the flank of the Japanese thrust on Australia, which became available. They've now been able to move units out of Australia. They've been moving units from India, South Africa, and so forth, in to reinforce Batavia. So that's three resources there. If the Japanese can get that, if they get that, they could release Burma, Thailand, and China, and rely on those three resources. It would make so as it is, they've got a lot of big territory here, which you have to put an infantry unit in the capital, or else you do not get the resource at the end of the season, because it's considered, partisans have taken over, disrupted the resources. So instead of having, say, 3 infantry units in different capitals here, they could have 1 in Batavia and get the same benefit, take those infantry out, and then they can use those to reinforce the islands here. So the Japanese really need Batavia. The Commonwealth have been clinging onto it for dear life, and it's been a to and fro battle for a long, long time. And essentially, the trouble the Japanese are having is they were massing air here, and they need to knock out the Commonwealth air, because if the Commonwealth air remain, then the Commonwealth can resupply. The most the Japanese are ever going to do is 3 hits a turn, which means 1 hit the Commonwealth will place, 1 out of those Commonwealth will place. The 2 odd numbers ones, the Japanese will place. They will place both of those, say, on an infantry unit in the hope of taking the ground. They have a toehold here at the end of the peninsula. But then the Commonwealth have 2 infantry units there, so all the gains they make are replenished with resupplies. Without the air units, the Commonwealth will not be able to resupply. So they concentrated for a while on nationalist China, so they took that so they could bring some air units that they're sort of with frittering up there down to here also. It's been complicated. The Commonwealth have now made a thrust up through Malaya since that was released by infantry units being fed by the Japanese into the Dutch East Indies. So very interesting situation there. And the US also have a strategic bomber based in Calcutta, which is interdicting resources there. So I'll dive straight into it. The Japanese are starting this impulse with 3 action points. Previously I was losing action points saved at the end of an impulse. I thought that's the way it was, but I discovered others weren't doing that way, and there's nothing in the rules to say it happens that way. So I stopped doing that. I realised, I guess it wasn't the right thing to do. So anyway, the Japanese have 10 resources. They're going to spend... I'm not going to show you the strategic map because I'd have to move the camera. It would mean a lot of fidgeting around. They have 2 CVs being rebuilt. That's 2 resources. They've got an army unit there that they just lost down in the peninsula. That has to be rebuilt, and they've got an infantry ready to deploy. So they spent 3 resources just on rebuilding those. They've got a battleship which they're not bothering with because it's going to take a long time to come, and it won't be so useful. We need carriers. It can soak up hits, but I don't think it's worth the resources. I think by the time it's available to be built, the Japanese are going to be so pinched for resources that they won't be able to finish it. So I don't think it's worth it. So we'll spend 1 action point to deploy that infantry unit. It has to go in the Japanese islands. We're going to send it as far down as we can in Okinawa. Okay, and mark that as active so we don't accidentally move it again or use it again, this impulse. Then they spend 1 more resource to get... We're still in winter, so we're not in the monsoon season. They get 5 action points for that. So they've got 7 now. I think they have, yes, they have a submarine unit here which they want to resupply. Because we've got air cover, that's okay. We can resupply, that will refit, as you see fit to call it. Then they really need to start cycling some air into here. So I'm going to spend another action point to move some air units around. So we'll do 1 hop into adjacent to Port Moresby. Let's get that submarine off the island. And then another one from here. So they've only done 1 hop. If they did 2 hops, they couldn't act. So they can actually act this turn. So I've now got 3 air there, and they could. There's a detective task force there. Actually, we could do that, and they're all 3 within range. Let's go for it. I was going to do some anti-submarine warfare, but they're in range of the US task force there. And then what is our target? Is it going to be the Marines or the carrier? There's 2 CVs there. Or indeed a submarine. No, it's going to be the Marines, because that's what we want to delay. So if we're lucky, we get 6. Still only going to put 1 hit on the Marines. That's not going to be much. No, we'll put it on the carrier, because the carrier you cannot resupply naval units or refit them. Once they're flipped until they're gone. Okay, so that's 3. And it's an airstrike, so they will get a defensive rollback of 2 against 3, so plus nationality modifiers is 3 against 4. So nothing for the Japanese. They rolled a 1, 4, 5, 7, so 1 flip. Drat, that's not good, because the US are going to be able to hit these back. 1 flip on the Japanese air, so that was unfortunate. Okay, and I have to spend an action point for that. So they've all acted. And now we have a Japanese fleet here. I think that we're going to send it out. So that's another action point 1. And then 2 into the C zone there, the megahex. And now these submarines will get interception attempts. Oh, well, it's detection attempts. So the US have got air, sea and sub and Coast Watcher in that megahex, so they've got +3 to the detection attempt, and they need a 5. Yes, they easily got that, so that's detected. And so both those subunits can go for it. I don't have a destroyer, but that would be minus. They will get a shot back. That's 5, 6, so that's a hit on a carrier and 1 on one of the subs. We'll take out that sub, so we've actually eliminated a whole subunit, which is good. Okay, but the Americans can take that now. We could have an interception from this unit here, but no, because it's has a transport with it. They could be screening it. That's the thing. Do we want to divide that task force? It was all together before, so no, that's the task force with the transport cannot intercept. So the Japanese will attack it, so it can defend, and it's not going to be a surprise attack. It's going to be an airstrike. So it's 2 CVs against 3 in the Japanese favour. Oh, we're rolling low, so that's 6, 7, 8 for the Japanese. So that's just 1 hit on a CV, and then the US 3, 6, 7 themselves 1 hit back. So that's just an indecisive exchange, probably 1 CV each hit. But as the Japanese already had a hit on CV from the subs, a whole CV unit can be eliminated because the die roller gets the first choice of where the hit goes. Ouch. So the Japanese are worse off from that. Okay. Or not. Okay, so now the Japanese have got some problems up in Thailand and Indochina, so they're going for a strike on the air there. Okay, they get a hit for a hit back. Okay. Not much good there. And now here, they're going for, essentially they're looking to invade, and it's going to be a sea battle. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, so it's all happening here, but I'm going to spread it out here. Are they detected? No, they are not. They're not detected, so that's incredible. 1, 2. No, they're not. So it's a surprise invasion. So this could be it. And no, the defense is so solid. There's no way that Japanese are going to take Batavia by storm. They've got 2 infantry units in there for a start. So anyway, we're all, I did it. So 3. I'm flipping that headquarters 4. It's supplyable. I'm checking for amphibious attrition, which you have to check for any possible combat. 6, and it's close to supplied ports, so they're on a 4, so they're fine. So they go in. So we've got Now the fleet can support in the defence there. So, and we've got air, and we've got adjacent air as well. That's what those air should have done. They should have fired before. So I'll count it as those air went before against this fellow here. 1, 2, 3, 4 against 1. So he's just flipped. And he does nothing back. So he can still actually join in. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on defence with 1, 2, 3 on attack. Oops. So it's 2 hits from the defender and 1 hit with the attacker. So it's lucky there's 2 waves there, or else the Marines would have gone. They got backup infantry, so one of those, that one can take one of the hits. And we'll put the other hit on the air unit, the Japanese hit. So again, not successful. I'm not doing this too carefully. It's kind of nice excuse, isn't it? Okay. So they remain at sea. Those have all acted, those have acted, and these are stuck in China. So that's it. The Japanese have no action points left. They're not spending any more. So they regenerate 5 at their current rate. No, 6 in fact. No, 5 because no, that will come down next. Okay, yeah, so 6. Okay, so we move on to the Commonwealth, and they are building a battleship, so I'll spend a resource for that, or rebuilding one. And then another resource for 5 action points. They're going to have to send a task force at sea from Africa, bringing in an infantry unit there. So that's an action point. 1, 2, 3, 4. They appear there, coming up there, completely undefended, but I'm sure they're going to be fine. And then because they've got air cover around here, they can resupply these fellows. So they're going to spend 1, 2, 3 points just resupplying. No, they only needed 2. Their infantry didn't get hit. You cannot resupply or refit, I should call it, which is when you flip unit back. You cannot do that with naval. You can do it with ground and air. I think I said that, didn't I? I'm not sure if I said that in the last video of this. They're spending 1 to refit that one. And they're keeping that unit there. So it's indecisive. They've taken Thailand back. That's going to remain a status, pretty much status quo there, unless they send in another infantry. Do they feel bold enough to do that? I think they do. So we're going to move this infantry over. Okay. And I'm going to start moving this fellow here as well. So he can use rail transport. Takes him to Madras. That's British action points. They could spend some more, but they don't have anything more to do, really. We're keeping 1 unit in Australia at the moment, just in case. So they regenerate their resources. We go to the US. They're on 5 available resources, and they've got 2 carriers and 2 battleships, which they're rebuilding. So if they keep that up, they only get 1 resource at the moment to do stuff on the map. So they already had 2 action points, so they've got some that while they're reinforcing the US, they have a lot of resources there. They don't get to do that much because, especially when they're having to rebuild, the Japanese have given them some hits because they need to get all their stuff out. It takes either action points or resources to rebuild, action points to reinforce. Okay, and a resource as well, but only one. Spending resource to flip that headquarters back. I'm feeling quite happy here with what's going on, but the Marine needs to get to safety, we are thinking. They need more planes around here now that the Japanese have reinforced it. So the Marine's going to go for an invasion against Bougainville, so we can flip the headquarters there. But first, hang on, 1, 2, 3. Okay, just checking. So we got the Japanese air covers that megahex, but the American too, so they cancel each other out, so we can have supply through there. We could have done it through there anyway. That's okay. Okay, so we roll for the Marines US invasion attempt 4, 5, 6. That is -2 because you have Japanese, so it's I rolled they get +1 for nationality modifier, +1 for the being supplied, +2 because they're Marines. 2 megahexes. Sorry, where is it? Yeah, 2 megahexes away from the port here, so that's -2, and -2 because it's Japanese, so on 0. They rolled a 4 and a 1, it would have been destroyed, so it is risky. We got it with a 4, so it's getting very crowded in this megahex. They've got Bougainville, woohoo! There's no extra infantry there, so the Marines themselves are having to take the island. And that fleet is acted, so it cannot move out, still at the mercy of the Japanese. But it's doing what it needs to be doing to bring the infantry ashore, so that the infantry can allow the air to come ashore, which is now what we're going to do. 1, to start moving air, and air hop to there. You can only have 1 on each of these islands, only 1 air per hex ever. So now, because that's 1 hop, he can still do something. We got 1, 2, 3. We got 2 air in range against that air. There's no adjacent air to defend it, so they can do an airstrike. It can defend itself, and we got nothing, low rolls, so nothing for either side. Okay, so they've all acted. Submarines only intercept. I'm happy with them where they are, so I won't move them. We got a task force here. We have 3 CVs. 1, 2, 3. This is going to turn the tide on the Japanese. Can the Japanese hold out? They need to take this, and then they can. And I need to check the rules. If now we've got all of China, if the Chinese infantry forces are able to move out of China, or if they have to remain. I have to check that. And we've left the Philippines, which means we're going to lose that resource too. The Japanese, this is just not helping them at all. The British, the Commonwealth, are really supporting the US effort by holding up in the Dutch East Indies. I think the Japanese are going to. The trouble is, if they change their strategy and they just hold their gains, then they're going to be using all their effort to hold the Commonwealth back. They need to take that, so the Commonwealth are just kind of all the way back in India, Australia, and too far away to really help. It is difficult for the Japanese. We shall see what happens. So anyway, that is the end. So the US is going to be ending on 5 action points, only having spent 2, because fleets in being. Let's see, fleets at sea Don't need an action point spent to move. So I spent 1 to do the air, or 1 for the air attack. That was it, wasn't it? Okay, that's it. And that is an impulse. So I can take off acted markers. And now what we do, because that is now actually the end of the season, we've normally at the end of the impulse, the Chinese, the unallied minor powers would move, but there's none left here anymore. So we go to the end of the season, which means countries that have lost their capital may surrender. So actually this is the point where I roll for the Nationalist Chinese surrender, because they took it earlier on, and I think they're on a 5, I rolled a 6, so they've lost it. So that has surrendered. That is now they might be able to move out. Otherwise they could have the Chinese could have rebuilt, but all these hexes are controlled by China. Japan, there wasn't many hexes left in Nationalist China that weren't taken by Japan earlier, so the conscript units can't move. They could only deploy into their already owned, controlled hexes, the remaining ones. Okay, so now that is the official fall of Nationalist China. And we eliminate at-sea naval units. We have none. So then I'll just show you how the beginning of the next season. So we now move to the spring. It's monsoon season now. And we start with the other theatre. Well, no, actually we start with the China attack marker. That's invalid. We put reset reinforcement markers. That's great. So the US can bring on 4 more reinforcements again. In spring, 5 more I should say, and the Commonwealth 2, the Japanese 2, but they don't have any left at the moment. They're going to get 1 more CV next year. And now the other theatre commitment, this is the real kicker. This is the Japanese are really hoping for 6s here. Oh, and they got 2 1s. That balance that I've only had them say 1 so far. On a 6s it's 2, on a 1 it's 0, and anything in between is 1, and that's the number of units in the other theatre commitment pool that are flipped. And we were having some 6s, so we're sort of losing 5 at a time, and that's 1, 2. So 1, 2. So what that means is there's 10, 20, 30, 36 units in there that are flipped, and I think 11, yes, that are unflipped. So that's 41 altogether, isn't it? No, 10, 20, 30, 47 in fact. And we need 50 at the beginning of next year, so we're going to have to send 3 more, but you can see out of 47, only 11 are unflipped. And you can see we're rolling 4 dice, 2 for the Commonwealth, 2 for the US, beginning of every season. We've got 2 more seasons, so potentially we've got 4, could be as high as, potentially we've got sort of 4 or 8 more are going to be flipped. But if we get 6s more than that, and then we're actually going to start losing units out of that box, which means units will have to come off the map to go into there. And already the US and the Commonwealth are feeding reinforcements straight into there without getting them into here. And they even have a reduced reinforcements pool compared to the whole global theatre campaign. So it's exciting stuff. So place isolated markers. Now the Japanese have isolation in here in Maoist China, but that's not a problem for them. In fact, no, I think now they can treat that as a supply source, can't they? Yeah, so that should be gone. Because the Japanese are only ever flipped when isolated, which they need these little benefits. Low fuel markers on other fleets at sea. Okay, we've got an American one there. And Japanese one there. there's one there, but that's going to go into port straight away. Another American one there. Okay. So, and then if you capture the country but we don't have a unit in its capital, we lose its resource. And that is the case now in the Philippines, so we're losing that resource to partisans. Okay. That is it for this video.